So, wow, there we go. Send me any questions you have related to yoga for BJJ. So any stretching questions? Has everyone been training? You've been feeling good while training? Good rounds, savage rounds, or still in lockdown and we're all improving our lives, improving ourselves being in lockdown? So let me know. And only solo, no secret fight clubs. I know. Our secret fight clubs kind of died down a little bit here too. They're a little bit quiet here too. At first it was like, quiet, and then there was a bunch, and then now they've kind of died down. But I think that things will hopefully start to open up, and at least I'll have some jiu-jitsu stories instead of asking everybody if they're training. But that's okay. All right. Send me any questions you have related to stretching, yoga for BJJ, neck strengthening poses. Why do you need neck strengthening poses? Is it sore? Give me more information on that. I sometimes find if people are on their back, like have people in their guard, like drills and stuff, that the neck does tend to get sore from holding it up. Is that what you're thinking? It's always good to know why. So let me know. The neck is kind of a funny one, isn't it? So give me a little bit more information on that. I would say, yeah, probably some good neck. No, well, some of them is just drilling on your back, being on your back and having and working, drilling the arm bars or whatever that will make the neck stronger. Protection against micro adjustments. Yeah, I don't touch the neck too much because I get like, it's very, you gotta be really careful with it, right? But let me put you down, put all of you guys down. And one you can do, what I guess you can do, what I recommend is when you're moving in, there we go, everyone can see me, into the cat-cow is kind of with the neck, moving it up and down. So this will fall nicely in line with your cat-cow, because obviously the cat-cow, we're arching and rounding the spine for spinal health. Probably the neck too, just really gently up and down, strengthening. We did have some wrestlers in our teacher trainings in the last one, and they like putting the top of the head on the ground and moving around that way. I always be careful of that just because I worry about everyone's neck, but some people that are from the wrestling background, like they were obviously totally fine doing that, but just really gently with the cat-cow. And you know what? The strengthening will also go in line with the range of movement, with the motion, increasing the range of motion. So try that with the cat-cow. Oh, yeah. Just from rolling. I don't know exactly what happened in scrambles and escaping. It fell the next day. Okay, yeah, so your neck is just sore. It's sore then. You can always jump into our rehab programs and take a look there. I think that if you move through the cat-cow, it might feel really nice, left and right. And here's an awesome stretch, one of my favorites. Take a seat. It's actually nicer on the shins. And reach the right arm all the way around to your left elbow pit. It's a really nice shoulder opener. Then bring the armpit to the left side. This is just an unreal stretch. And move the chin and the head forward and back. So it sounds like, yeah, you kind of just tweaked it a little bit. So this will be a really nice stretch for it. And then don't forget to do the other side. So give it a couple days, gently do the cat-cows and move through this stretch, this really nice side stretch. So just give it some time and do this, and then you'll feel really good. It'll really help you a lot. What have we got? Oh, I thought I had a question here. Let me pull it up. Oh no, we didn't. Okay. How long are these? Are these lives with me? I usually do about 15, 20 minutes, something like that. Somewhere around there. So you can bring your notebook and your list of questions for me or just hang out. I envision probably people sitting there with their coffee and just hanging out and just watching and sending waves, and we're all talking about wrestling, jiu-jitsu. Okay, the next one that I want to talk about today, which is really, really cool, is hips. There's been a lot of questions and talk about hips. How's everyone's hips feeling? Good? I find they're just always tight because we always demand so much from them in jiu-jitsu. Going from the rest of life, or the hips are commonly forward, right? Send questions, right? I always interrupt myself. People tease me. My team teases me because I'll be talking, I'll interrupt myself to answer the questions. I'm like, who does that? So for the hips, they're always usually sitting forward, right? Sitting forward in these two train track lines. If I'm sitting and working, walking, sitting in the car, even you're standing, they're in the two train track lines. So going from this to jiu-jitsu, going from that to jiu-jitsu where we demand the hips, boom, the guard is closed, and we have the hips facing out, it's called external rotation. Then we move into scissor sweeps where we're going, you know, like there's so much going on. It's not like internal rotation as if the knee goes in. We're not quite doing that with the scissor sweep, but there are times where that does happen. If you have the jerk passing your guard and then they lift the knee up and you're like, man, that's not very fun. And I just have a great appreciation of what our hips do, moving from always being on two train track lines to jiu-jitsu. It's like our hips go from normal life to jiu-jitsu, and it's like, man, they do everything. Like, no wonder they get to be a little bit tight. You know, it's no wonder. We demand a lot from them. So some really cool stretches, like especially through the outside of the hips, because I'm like, why is it so common for the outside of the hips to be so tight, right? And one of the reasons is when the guard, for example, you can apply this to lots of positions, but if the guard is closed, the knees are out. And anytime the knees are out, it's called external rotation. So rotating to the outside, knees are facing out, and in jiu-jitsu that happens a lot. Closed guard, you have your Delahiva guard, you know, spider guard, like all these guards, the knees are out. And when the knees are out, it puts stress on the outside of those legs. So they tend to get really tight. And to help with that, I actually posted a video of this on IG too that everyone can save on our IG. To help with that is to first bring mobility into the hips movement, just get the blood flowing. So windshield wiping the knees left and right, and don't get too stuck on how far down the knees go. When I started this, I was like, both knees have to touch the ground, but it feels terrible and it's way too much. I'm like, don't get stuck too much on that. Just bringing the knees over. And the concept here is to move the hips internally and externally. And this is a great thing to do if the instructor is like showing a technique, or if you're in quarantine and you're watching TV and really miss jiu-jitsu, just the knees left and right. Bring some mobility into the hips, internal, external rotation. And then as I'm doing this and looking at it, just comparing this to what I'm doing on the jiu-jitsu mats in my wrestling, and it's pretty cool. So a lot of external and internal rotation, like what are my hips doing when I'm wrestling, when I'm in my techniques. Then once I've brought some, you know, just I kind of call it like getting the rest off. Then one is for the outside of the hips. I've showed this one before, but it's so great, bringing the ankle on the quad. You can really only bring the ankle onto one quad, right ankle and the left quad. So I just say quad, because there's no way you can bring the right ankle on the right quad, because that's ridiculous. So ankle on the quad, and this will stretch the outside of the hip, a really nice gentle stretch. If you want a bonus shoulder stretch, point the fingers forward, bring the torso up. And it's not like a race of being like a contest, being like, how flexible can I make my shoulders, point them forward. If this feels terrible, like if you're ever in a position and it's like, get me out of here now, I need out, this hurts, this sucks, you gotta change it. Just like jiu-jitsu. If you're in a position, you're like, get me out of here now. I'm stuck under side control, I'm stuck under mount, I'm stuck under a pressure pass, get me out of here now. You gotta change something. Except the nice thing about stretching is you don't have to fight your way out. You can just maybe rotate the fingers out for less stress on the shoulders. Forward is more intense, out is less intense. So that, I think someone wrote something. No, that's just an awesome name. So you don't have to worry about that. Stretching outside of the hip, intensify it. Point the fingers forward or out at the 45-degree angle, chest up. More intense, bring the foot closer to the hip. Of course, do the other side. And a nice little secret thing that this will do too is begin stretching the forearms. See those forearms? and your future self, if you ever want to do arm balance, it's nice to have that stretched out. But the other thing is stretching the forearms is also important, because in jiu-jitsu, we're always pulling in, cupping, gripping. So this is a really nice balance to that. That's the first one. Windshield wiping, boom. Obviously, stretch the other hip to the outside of the hip. Next one is windshield wiping. You can add that. Like, it's not like a rule you have to add it in between or it won't work. Like, I just like to add it kind of in between. Next one is bring both feet to the, we're gonna go to the right side. Now here, S mount. Right, you've got S mount on someone. This will improve your S mount, by the way. And bring pretty much an elbow to a knee and the other elbow to the ankle. Start here. Start here. Like, this stretch should feel good. So this is a nice S mount stretch for the outside of the hip. And if you want to intensify it, you can go ahead and straighten the back leg. So this will be a stretch of the outside of the right hip and through the front of the back hip. What time have we got? Oh, we're perfect. Okay, good. So this is a really, really great stretch for that, more intense. And if you can't do this and if it doesn't feel good, go back to the previous one with the ankle on the quad. And of course, to do the other side, you can either windshield wipe in your transition or just move over to the other side. And as the foot, it depends on the knee. Like, if the knee is injured, obviously it might feel better to have the foot a bit lower. But as the hips become more flexible, perhaps that leg can be moved up a little more, a little more, a little more. And if we look at this, can really appreciate this, the foot being able to go up a little bit higher, because when I'm moving into on my back and maybe having someone pass my guard stack, it's really nice to be able to make my guard bigger. Like, if I'm only this flexible, that's the end of my guard. If I'm this flexible, you know, it's going to be harder for them to pass it. So making my guard more effective, increasing range of motion of the guard. And eventually, one day, everyone will be so flexible that the guard will be like, boom, all the way up. Obviously, I'm still working on that. So that's a bit of hamstrings too. And obviously, maybe next week we'll talk about hamstrings, because they're also fascinating. You don't want hamstrings to be just long. So everyone's like, I gotta stretch my hamstrings. And we do. You also want them to be strong. Strong and long. Lengthen and strengthen. Yeah. So you don't, and I actually didn't know that. So it's really fascinating. So that's us talking about our hips, or my hips, jiu-jitsu hips. One aspect of it. We talk mostly about just the outside of the hips, but there's so many elements to it in relation to jiu-jitsu and improving the jiu-jitsu game by doing the homework off the jiu-jitsu mats. And to me, it's like, now that I've started doing yoga, I wouldn't do jiu-jitsu without it. I didn't know what I was missing. So I wouldn't do jiu-jitsu without it, honestly. It's helped so much in the strengthening, building the strength through the flows. And I'm not gonna lie, when I first started in foundation making the flows, I didn't like them. They didn't feel good. They were hard, it was different. But as I got better at them and flexibility and strength increased, they felt better. And by strength, I mean strength through the small stabilizing muscles, strength through the different parts of the core, strength and movement and transitions from three-legged dog to the lunge, maybe flip dog, like transitions, moving between the poses just really helps. You know what? This is being recorded and you can find it on, I did a little post on the hips on the Instagram Live, and this will be on YouTube, Twitch. What else do we have? Facebook. We have a Facebook community group. I put it in there too, so you can join there. And yeah, you can watch it, share it, make notes, drink another coffee to it. We're talking about the outside of the hips. See, I always interrupt myself answering questions, and then our tech guy, Kai, makes fun of me. He's like, I like you interrupt yourself all the time. I'm like, I know. So I'm just saying that because I don't know oh yes, that's what I was talking about. The flows build that strength, right? and we need that. But then there's the other side of it where the slower yoga is incredibly important to stretch the connective tissue, and that's what can really help make it long. So both sides are incredibly important. There's a flow yoga for strength and movement, and then there's a slow yoga to balance that out. But I've been reading about it, and even the connective tissue, the fascia, it can get scar tissue in it. So these really slow stretches help release that. And that's what my class today will be. We will start with some really light movement to kind of get the rust off of it. 'Cause there's actually fuzz that kind of gets in the muscles. So if you feel like you haven't done yoga for a couple of days and you're like, man, this kind of hurts, like it's hard, like just at the start, you're getting the fuzz off of everything, fuzz for lack of better words. So moving through just the spine and then opening the shoulders. It feels so good. Open the shoulders, stretch them out, and then finishing with the lower back, with the hamstrings. So it's basically a full body from head to toe. More or less, like I'm always like, there's so much you can do in a head to toe, but a crash course for the head to toe, and one of my favorites to do before I head to bed. So if you're really tired, my favorite is if I'm tired and I don't want to do yoga tonight. This is like, I'm too tired, I don't want to do yoga, but I'm going to do it, and I'm going to feel even better tonight and tomorrow. So that's what is happening. So go ahead and jump on the story. You can swipe up, jump to yogaforbjj.net, and I'm on the banner. You can click the banner. You will need your jiu-jitsu belt for today, because we'll move through some hamstring stuff too, because legs are commonly bent. So I'm just balancing everyone out to make our jiu-jitsu better and maybe make us feel better in everyday life, because that inevitably comes too. All right, everyone. I will also be live tomorrow morning, Sunday, same time, same place. Okay, thank you for hanging out with me and for your awesome questions and just chilling, and I'll see everybody soon.